Okay, so here's some examples that we're going to be working through. Excuse me. We're going to be writing these as exponential form. Now, when you're doing this, remember to pay attention to what your a is. In this case, my a is 6x. And so I am going to write 6x, that whole thing, and then power over root. So, or exponent over index. So this would be to the 2/3 power. Since the 6x is all underneath the radical, I need the parentheses, okay? Number 2, 1, 2, understood. So this would be p to the 1/2. Number 3, again, the 7x is all underneath, whoops. So we would have 7x, and then we would do the exponent over the index. Okay. Next one, just the n is under the radical. You have exponent over index, or power over root. Next one, again, the 7x is all under, or 7a is all under the radical, therefore it must go in parentheses. Our power is the 2, the root is the 3. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to try number 6 and see what you get. Okay, so the 10x is all underneath the radical, so that should be put in parentheses. The power is 5, the root is 2, so 5 over 2. Okay, go ahead and try number 7. So a is the only thing underneath the radical, therefore I do not need any parentheses. The understood 2 because it's a square root, so 5 over 2. Try number 8. Okay, since the 10n is all underneath the radical, I need it in parentheses. Your power here on all of this is to the first power. Okay, so it is 1 over 4. Number 9. Go ahead and try that one. Okay, x is the only thing underneath the radical. My power is 7. My root is 6. Okay, now I want to talk about number 10, because number 10 is all underneath the radical. It is all to the 4th root, but only the x is squared. So we do have to be a little careful on this one. So if I write it as 5x squared, it would be to the 1/4 power. Now, what you're actually going to see a lot of times is this written simplified, is what they would consider it. And so this would be 5 is to the 1/4, okay? Because this is a 1, if I do power to power. Your x, in this case, would be to the 2, because again, power to power, 2/4 or 1/2, okay? So sometimes you might see it written in a little bit different form, and they consider sometimes that a simpler form, okay? If you're just doing a simple translation, changing it to the first way would probably be acceptable. Okay, now we're going to go back the other way. Okay, so in this case there is parentheses, which is telling me the whole thing is underneath the radical. Okay, it's telling me that my root is a 4, my power is a 7. If you were to write it with the 7 inside the radical, okay, then it would need to be written as 2n to the 7th. That would all have to be there because that 2n is in parentheses. Number 12, again, it's in parentheses. Whoops, sorry. I think my pen is about to die. Which means that it is, again, all underneath the radical. And so I have 10b. It is to the 1/6, so all I need is the 6. Okay, I don't need the 1. Next one, n. It is to the 1/3, which is simply the cube root of. 6r, it's in parentheses, so I know the whole thing must be underneath the radical. It is to the 3rd root, power over root, and the 4th power. Okay, now just showing you that my preference would be to write it, whoops, excuse me, I just undid that. That is not what I meant to do. Let me go back here. Didn't even need parentheses there. Let me go back and rewrite that. But what I was going to say was that this way is my preferred way that I like writing it versus the second way that I had written there. Okay, let's just keep doing a few more of these. Okay, so again, all of that is underneath in the parentheses, so that's all going to go inside here. It is to the 1/4, which simply means it is the 4th root. R, okay, and it is power over root. And don't put the 2 there, that's not necessary. 17. The 3x, again, is all in parentheses, therefore that's telling me it's all underneath the radical. It is power over root, which tells me it's the 5th root, 7th power. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to try it on your own. So go ahead and try number 18. Okay, so this is your K, and it is your power over your root. Go ahead and try 19. Okay, the 6r again is in parentheses, so it's all underneath here. It is power over root, and again it would be the square root, so I'm not going to put anything there. And go ahead and try number 20. Okay, so it is just the square root of 5x. Understood 1, understood 2. Okay, now we're going to go on looking at the next one. So you can do this by, one, writing it out into a radical form, or you might can do it without a radical. Okay, let's go ahead and put it in radical form first. So this is 16k squared. It is the power over the root. Okay, now when I do this, I always do the root first part first. Okay, so this is saying the square root of 16, okay, which is 4. And if you think about this, I'm going to do k 2 over 2, which is just 1. Or remember, we know that a square root undoes a square, so this is just a k. Okay, now this whole thing is still cubed, okay, because all I've done right now is just simplify this piece. So when I take the 4 and I cube it, we're going to get 64k cubed. Now, let's talk about how to do it without actually having to write it out in radical form. I'm first going to always look at the root piece of it. So I'm going to look at this piece, okay? It is the square root. So the square root of 10, or 100, is 10. The square root of b squared would be b. And I'm going to go ahead and write this. It's not necessary, but that's to the first power. So my answer is just 10b. Okay? Let's try it with one a little bit harder. So on this one, I'm doing the cube root. Okay? So the cube root of 8 would be 2. Then if I look at the cube root of 9, a to the 9th, then what I'm doing is I'm just dividing those, and that would be a third. So let me show you what I mean by that. I have a9 to the 3rd. So root. So I am looking at, this would be A3 and A3. Whoops, sorry. Let me go back.